No pray. I said no pray.
I lived in a quiet village, and one trip out flipped my family's fate when my hunter dad sensed danger and yanked a weapon from his belt. Sure enough, a group of people with the same skin showed up in the woods, but they'd already sold out to white men and were running a people trading racket. To avoid being enslaved, Dad fought like hell, but they outnumbered us and had firearms, and soon my parents were knocked down while I was clamped in shackles. They marched me and the others off to somewhere unknown, but a boy my age slipped me some water on the road. Others weren't so lucky. The downed were often just left behind. At a break, the boy gave me a mango, and I bit into it, only to have a woman beside me snatch it away. While we rested, I tried to pray, and that act pissed off the trafficker. If death has to carry a hate tag, it is usually your own people who turn into your worst enemies. When we passed a village, the locals threw trash at us to drive us off. Even with the same skin, we were shunned by our own. After who knows how long, we ran into a people we'd never seen before. White-skinned folk, and a cold fear washed over me. We pushed through the trees and hit the shoreline where lots of captured people were already gathered, and another crew was waiting to take us over. Before boarding, they branded us. The tough woman just stared them down, and I blacked out amid the screams. When I woke, we were far from home. Pretty soon we were shoved onto a huge ship where they frisked us one by one, and anyone who stepped out of line got thrown overboard. A pregnant woman at the back was about to be tossed into the sea too, so I lied and told them I used to be a midwife, which saved her, and got my shackles off. Then came the pre-departure routine, drenched by rain, roasted by the sun, and finally shoved into a pitch black hold. The hold was packed with black people and reeking. The prisoners couldn't move. Filth ran everywhere, and I had to grit my teeth and push through the stench. Suddenly, a man grabbed my arm. I was the only new face in months, and people started introducing themselves. And for a moment, that tiny spark of laughter blew a little light into the darkness. They gave me special leave to walk the deck, and one day the captain took me to his cabin and offered me a cup of sweet wine. I knew what he wanted, and when he reached out, I slipped away fast and left him to grumble. I pocketed the dagger from the table and passed it down to the people locked in the hold. The voyage dragged, and one day a sailor eased on a woman and hauled her into his arms before she could react, clearly using her as an outlet, then dragged her into the hold. And while he was getting his sick pleasure, she pulled a knife and stabbed him. I'd already slipped the keys to the boy. We were about to spark a revolt, and when that abused woman walked out of the hold, people yanked open their shackles to the beat of the music and attacked. But more crew rushed in with long guns, and our fighters lost steam, and 2 leaders were tied to stakes and shot dead on the spot. After a 10-week crossing, we set foot in South Carolina, where kids still hurled trash at us and fancy women stared at us like we didn't belong. In a cold cellar, we huddled together for warmth, and the boy managed to snatch some food for me from the crowd. The next day, they smeared us with lard and waited for buyers, and the boy was sold for £8. I didn't know if I'd ever see him again. Then I was dragged onto the auction block. Despite the traffickers' hype, my small frame didn't stand out, and a plantation owner bought me for £5. They bound me and the others, and hauled us to the plantation, and after the long trek and hunger, I collapsed into the arms of a kind housemaid, with no kids who raised me like her own for 8 years, until one morning I woke and saw the plantation owner at the gate, scheming something big.
You move your head, mean I'm gonna bleed your skull.
He snipped off my hair, his way of claiming me. Those 8 years on the farm flew by, and they were good to me, teaching me to read and learn my letters. In my 20s, I was just waking up to desire, and lately people kept asking my name. Later I learned they were asking about the boy I'd been separated from. His name was Sakuta. 8 years later, we met for the first time and couldn't stop talking. And when he put a headscarf on me with his own hands, I knew in my heart I belonged to him. The owner must have heard something. One afternoon, he dragged me into a room, started groping me, and ended up assaulting me. The folks I worked with seemed used to this sort of thing and could only offer weak, helpless comfort. A few months later, I got pregnant. The owner assumed it was his, and from my hesitant look, he seemed to suspect something. What he didn't know was that I'd been seeing Sakuta a lot those months. One night, our people held a simple wedding for us, and I became Sakuta's wife. One day, a Jewish couple visited the estate, and because I had midwife experience and spoke fluent English, they took to me right away. I woke in the night to find the cradle empty, followed the crying and found her. The owner had given my child to someone else, and it nearly broke me. Later, the Jewish couple took me north with them. They were kind to me, especially the mistress, Mrs. Linda. I asked her to help find out where my child had been taken, and she didn't hesitate. She brought me to the slave market and asked around herself. There I saw a sliver of hope. Mrs. Linda took me to search in person. We went through a whole mess of inquiries, and that wasn't my child. It broke me all over again. Time flew, but I still didn't give up looking for any trace of my child. By 1772, smallpox was tearing across the Americas, and with the medicine of the time, there was basically no cure. Mrs. Linda and her child caught it too, and in the end, they didn't make it. On her deathbed, Mrs. Linda persuaded Mr. Lindo to let my husband visit me every month and to promise not to drive him away. That moved me deeply. She was the best white person I'd met in the first half of my life. By chance, I found Mr. Lindo's notes, which clearly recorded the transaction. He set it up through his contacts, and the child had been taken to a family in Georgia. That made me furious and crushed. When I confronted him, he owned up right away.
I know I had a daughter. This says you sold her.
Saying he didn't want my child to grow up on the farm and repeat my life. In some ways I agreed. Later my husband learned the child's fate was the same as Mrs. Linda's. She caught smallpox, and they couldn't save her. The mix of emotions left me lost, and the total loss of my child had me sobbing uncontrollably.